My fiancée told everyone I was too poor for her, so I called off the wedding and announced her affair in front of 200 guests. I'm a 29-year-old guy, and I've never been rich. But I've always believed that love mattered more than money. Maybe that sounds naive, but growing up in a working-class family, I learned early on that loyalty, patience, and effort meant more than any paycheck. After college, I picked up 2 jobs, one in HVAC installation and another delivering furniture on weekends. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady, and I was proud of how far I'd come on my own. I didn't have a trust fund or a fancy degree, but I had ambition, and I thought that was enough. I met Vanessa at a charity 5K. She was this confident, fast-talking woman with a kind smile and a runner's high that never wore off. We struck up a conversation at the smoothie tent, and by the end of the week, we were texting nonstop. She worked in wellness marketing, lived across town, and came from a very different world. Private schools, destination holidays, wine tastings. But none of that seemed to matter. She used to tell me, "I don't need a rich man. I just want a real one." We bonded over late-night takeout, fitness playlists, and our mutual dream of starting a family someday. Within 6 months, we moved into a tiny 2-bedroom apartment I'd been renting. Nothing fancy, but ours. I'd bring her coffee in bed on Sundays, and she'd write affirmations on the mirror before my morning shift. For a while, it felt like love the way movies promised. Warm, simple, and whole. But there were signs I chose not to see. Little comments about leveling up. Her friends giggling when I picked her up in my old truck. Questions like, "Do you think you'll always work with your hands?" Looking back, I didn't realize I was just a project, something to fix, not love. The first time I met Vanessa's parents, I wore the only button-down shirt I owned that didn't have drywall dust on the collar. Her dad shook my hand like he was testing my grip strength, then immediately asked, "So, what's your 5-year plan?" No, "Nice to meet you." No, "How did you two meet?" Just straight to the resume. Her mom smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She glanced at my shoes when I sat down and said, "It's nice that you work with your hands. So many men don't do that anymore." I couldn't tell if it was a compliment or a warning. We were having dinner in their marble-topped kitchen. Filet mignon, asparagus drizzled with truffle oil, wine I couldn't pronounce. Vanessa had warned me they were a bit intense, so I tried to be polite. I complimented the food, offered to help clean up, even brought a small bouquet for her mom, but the air felt thick with judgment the whole night. Her dad leaned back after dinner and said, "Vanessa tells me you're in HVAC. Good money in that, at least until the robots take over." Her mom laughed. I didn't. I just smiled and said, "I'm not too worried. I fix things when they break. Always will." After that night, there were more family events. Her brother's engagement party where someone asked if I was the driver, as a joke. Her cousin's birthday dinner where they placed me at the end of the table like a +1 to my own relationship. Vanessa would squeeze my hand under the table and whisper, "Ignore them." And I tried. I really did, because I believed love could survive discomfort, that the right person would fight for you even if their family wouldn't. But love doesn't always speak up when it should, and silence can be its own kind of betrayal. About 1.5 years into our relationship, Vanessa started dropping hints, Pinterest boards left open, bridal magazines accidentally tucked into the grocery bag, casually mentioning destination weddings when we passed travel ads. At first, I laughed it off. I wasn't ready. Not because I didn't love her, but because I wanted to be able to give her the kind of life she clearly grew up expecting. Still, the pressure built slowly. Every time her friends got engaged, she'd sigh a little deeper. Her mom would say things like, "You know, Vanessa's not getting any younger." Then, after a weekend trip to Napa with her girls, she came back glowing. "I've been thinking," she said, curling up next to me on the couch, "I don't need a huge ring. I just want something real. I want us." It hit me like a wave, sudden, warm, dangerous. So I drained my savings, picked up extra weekend shifts, and after 3 months, I found a modest but beautiful vintage ring from a local jeweler. Gold band, tiny diamond, elegant. It wasn't flashy, but it felt like us. Or at least the version of us I still believed in. I proposed during a walk on the beach. Just the two of us, no photographers, no champagne. When I got down on one knee, she cried. I thought they were tears of joy. Looking back, I'm not so sure. Within a week, she'd hired a wedding planner. Guest list, 200. Venue, Vineyard Estate. Dress budget, more than I made in 2 months. I offered to pitch in where I could, DJ, flowers, even custom signage from a guy I knew, but she waved it off. My parents said they'd cover most of it. You just focus on showing up. At the time, I felt grateful. Like maybe I'd finally proven myself. But somewhere deep down, a small voice whispered, "This isn't a celebration. It's a makeover," and I was the before picture. Once the engagement was official, something shifted in Vanessa. She became consumed by the wedding. I'm not talking about normal excitement. I mean full-blown obsession. Every dinner conversation turned into a checklist. Florals, lighting schemes, monogrammed napkins. When I suggested we scale things down, maybe keep it intimate, she rolled her eyes and said, "My parents are expecting a real wedding, not a backyard barbecue." The spending spiraled fast. She ordered a custom gown from a boutique in New York, flew out for fittings without telling me, booked a string quartet for cocktail hour. I offered to contribute where I could, told her I could build a photo booth or set up the reception tables with my buddies. But she just smiled tightly and said, "Let me handle it. It's better if you just focus on your work." And suddenly, we became her. Her day, her vision, her guest list. When we went to a colleague's party one weekend, she introduced me to a group of women as my fiancé. He does HVAC stuff. Not my name. Not, "This is James." Just a quick label and a polite smile. One of them raised an eyebrow and said, "That's cool. You must be great with your hands," with a little too much condescension. They laughed. I didn't. I started to feel like I was shrinking in my own relationship. I used to bring her coffee in bed. She used to kiss me before I left for work. Now, she barely looked up from her phone, always checking emails from the planner, arguing with vendors, obsessing over table placements. Then, one night, I overheard her talking to her best friend on speakerphone. She said, "He's sweet, but sometimes it's exhausting dating someone with limited ambition." They both laughed. I stood there in the hallway holding a laundry basket, wondering if I was hearing my future unravel in real time. After that night, something inside me cracked, but I didn't say anything. I kept folding laundry, kept going to work, kept playing the part of the proud fiancé. I told myself maybe she was just stressed, that weddings bring out the worst in people, that once it was over, she'd come back to me. But the more I ignored it, the louder it all became. At her cousin's engagement party, I noticed people were acting. Weird, not rude, just off. A few relatives gave me those tight, uncomfortable smiles. One woman leaned in and said, "Vanessa told us you're footing part of the bill. That's impressive, given your situation." I blinked. "My situation?" She looked flustered. "Oh, never mind. I just meant," she said, "you're trying your best. Trying my best." That phrase haunted me for days. At another dinner, her uncle joked, "So, you're the guy who convinced Vanessa that love is more important than a 6-figure income, huh?" Everyone laughed. I clenched my jaw and nodded, pretending I hadn't just been slapped across the face in slow motion. The final straw was when my childhood friend Ryan pulled me aside after grabbing a beer together. He hesitated, then said, "Man, I need to tell you something. I overheard Vanessa at that art gallery event. She was talking to some of her friends, calling the wedding a lesson in settling down. Said you weren't what she expected, but that you were a safe bet. A safe bet. Like I was a savings bond she could cash in if life didn't go according to plan." That night, I confronted her, asked her why people were talking like they knew my financials better than I did. She waved it off with a sigh. "People just talk. It's nothing. Don't be so sensitive." But it wasn't nothing, because the way she said it, it sounded like she agreed. It happened on a Wednesday night. She had a late Pilates class, or at least that's what she said. I was home fixing the leaky kitchen faucet when I heard her phone buzz on the counter. Once, twice, then again. Normally, I wouldn't have touched it. I'm not the snooping type. But something about the way her screen lit up, over and over with the same name, Travis, made my stomach knot. I picked it up. No passcode. The first message said, "Still thinking about that kiss in the elevator." The second, "Your lips taste like trouble." I sat down. My hands were trembling so hard I could barely scroll. The thread was endless. Flirty emojis, inside jokes, hotel bookings, shirtless selfies from a guy I'd never seen before. But it wasn't just that she was cheating. It was the way. She talked about me. She called me her handyman. Project, said she was doing missionary work for the emotionally underdeveloped. Joked that I probably thought this wedding was real. My throat closed. My ears buzzed. I felt like I'd fallen into some twisted, alternate version of my life. This wasn't just betrayal. It was humiliation wrapped in condescension and tied with a smirk. She came home an hour later, all smiles and glowing skin. "Kitchen's looking better," she said, tossing her bag down. "You're so handy. You know that?" I stared at her like I was seeing a stranger for the first time. Every curve of her face suddenly looked sharp, calculated, masked, and in that moment I realized this woman wasn't building a life with me. She was staging a performance, and I was the prop she planned to use, then discard, neatly, quietly, like trash on the curb. But I wasn't going to stay quiet. I didn't confront her right away. I wish I could say I stormed in, screamed, threw the ring at her feet, but the truth is, I froze. Because the wedding was in 3 weeks. Invitations had been sent. Vendors paid. Her family had already started flying people in. And me? I had just cashed out half my emergency fund to pay for the honeymoon flights she insisted we split, because it's a partnership, she said. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in the living room, lights off, her messages with Travis burned into my retinas. She giggled in her sleep from the other room, and I swear I felt my chest cave in. For 2 days, I moved like a ghost. I went to work, answered emails, smiled when people asked if I was excited. But underneath it, I was building something. Quietly, strategically. I started taking screenshots. Downloaded every photo, every message thread. Organized them by date, by hotel, by context. I wasn't just angry, I was done. But if I was going out, I was going out on my terms. I even met with the DJ and told him I might want to change the reception playlist order. He looked confused, but agreed. I asked a trusted friend who worked in IT to help me compile the messages into a clean, time-stamped PDF. No speculation, no rumors. Just facts. And all the while, Vanessa was busy picking out chair covers and posting cutesy countdowns on Instagram. 17 days to forever. Can't wait to marry my best friend. Best friend. She had no idea I was setting the stage. Not for a wedding, but for a reckoning. The rehearsal dinner was held at a country club that probably cost more than my car. Vanessa's parents had rented the entire patio. Waiters in white jackets floated around with trays of champagne. Her mom wore pearls. I wore a borrowed blazer that was a size too small. From the moment I arrived, I felt like furniture. People greeted me politely but barely listened when I spoke. One of her uncles slapped my back and said, "So, ready to start your new life as a kept man?" Everyone laughed. I forced a smile that hurt my teeth. Then Vanessa's father stood up to give a toast. He cleared his throat, raised his glass, and said, "When Vanessa told us she'd fallen in love with a man who fixes air conditioners, I won't lie, I was worried." The crowd laughed. My heart sank. But then I realized, he continued, what she sees in him. Reliability, humility, someone solid. He may not be extravagant, but he's got heart. Not extravagant. That one stuck in my chest like a splinter. Vanessa smiled throughout, like it was all endearing. Like I should be grateful for their public approval. I stared at the tablecloth, my jaw locked. After dinner, I stepped outside alone, just needing air. That's when I heard them, Vanessa and her bridesmaids a few feet away laughing. "She really said all that?" one of them asked. Vanessa giggled. "Yeah, Dad thinks James is like a rescue dog. Loyal, a little rough around the edges, but sweet if you feed him." Another bridesmaid howled. "God, you're terrible," Vanessa smirked. "I mean, I could have married someone like Travis, but my parents would have killed me. I didn't move. I didn't breathe." That was the moment, the rock bottom moment, where I realized I wasn't just being cheated on. I was being used, marketed, displayed, and discarded before the curtain had even risen. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat on the edge of the hotel bed, staring at the suit hanging on the door. The one I was supposed to wear tomorrow to promise my life to a woman who thought I was some kind of charity case. Every word from that patio conversation played on repeat in my head. Rescue dog. Could have married Travis. Not extravagant. Around 4 a.m., I stood up, opened my laptop, and reopened the folder I'd been building in secret. Screenshots, texts, voice notes. The story she never thought anyone would read. And then I opened a blank Word doc. Dear guests, before I say, I do, I think it's only fair you know what Vanessa's been up to during our engagement. I kept it simple, clear, unemotional. I didn't want to be dramatic. I wanted to be undeniable. And once it was done, I printed 20 copies and slid them into a black folder. Then I called the DJ. Told him I had a surprise for the reception. A quick thank you speech after the first dance. He hesitated, but said okay. I texted 2 of my closest friends, both invited to the wedding, and told them to sit near the front. They didn't ask questions. They just said, "Whatever you need, we've got you." I showered, shaved, and packed a small overnight bag. One change of clothes, my wallet, and the ring, still in its little velvet box. And when I looked in the mirror, I saw someone I barely recognized. Not broken, not bitter, just done. I wasn't going to start a marriage built on lies, but I was sure as hell going to end one the right way. The sun was blinding that morning. Not symbolic, not poetic, just hot and heavy, like the universe was trying to press me down one last time before I stood up for myself. Guests were already filing into the vineyard when I arrived. Everyone in suits and summer dresses, laughing, sipping champagne like nothing was wrong. Vanessa was somewhere inside getting her makeup done, probably surrounded by bridesmaids who called me humble behind my back. I walked through the crowd like a ghost, smiling, nodding, thanking people for coming. But in my chest, something had cracked open, like I'd finally stopped pretending to be the man they expected and started becoming the man I needed to be. The ceremony started late. Something about a delay with the photographer. I stood at the altar, not nervous, just calm, cold. Vanessa walked down the aisle in a gown that probably cost more than my truck. She looked beautiful. Fake, like a glass sculpture, elegant and hollow. The officiant began. We went through the usual motions, vows, rings, all of it, until it was my turn to speak. I held her hand, looked right into her eyes, and said, "Before I make any promises, there's something you should all know." A ripple of confusion passed through the crowd. Murmurs. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the folder. "This," I said, "is a collection of messages between Vanessa and a man named Travis. She's been seeing him for months. She's called me her rescue dog and bragged about settling for safety." I handed a copy to her father, another to the officiant, 2 more to my friends up front. Gasps. Silence. Then shouting. Vanessa's face went from white to red in seconds. "What the hell are you doing?" She hissed. I took off the ring, placed it gently in her hand. "I'm saving both of us a lifetime of lies." And then I walked away, past the guests, past the flowers, past the version of myself I almost became. I didn't look back, not once. As I walked past rows of stunned guests, I could hear the whispers growing louder, gasps turning into murmurs, murmurs into chaos. Behind me, someone shouted, "Is this for real?" Another yelled, "He just exposed the bride." But I didn't stop. I just kept walking, straight to my car, where my overnight bag waited like a finish line I'd earned the right to cross. By the time I hit the main road, my phone was blowing up. 20 missed calls from Vanessa. Texts ranging from, "Come back, we can fix this," to, "You humiliated me, you petty bastard." Then came the calls from her mom, her friends, even Travis, who messaged me with a pathetic, "Bro, I didn't mean for it to go this far." I turned my phone off. By that evening, videos from the ceremony had started circulating. Someone had caught my entire speech on camera, and it didn't take long before the clip hit social media. Groom cancels wedding in front of 200 guests, exposes bride's affair. Hundreds of thousands of views in hours. Comments split into two armies. Team Vanessa, calling me cruel and theatrical, and Team Me, calling me a hero for walking away from a one-sided disaster. I stayed at a cheap motel for the weekend, alone, quiet, no revenge fantasies, no alcohol, just silence and slow breathing. The peace felt foreign, but real. A few days later, I returned the gifts that had come from my side of the family, donated the ones without names. Vanessa sent a long email begging me to talk like adults. I never replied. She didn't want closure. She wanted control, and I had finally learned the difference. It's been a little over a year now. No more wedding checklists. No more passive-aggressive dinner parties. No more pretending to be someone small enough to fit inside someone else's vision of success. After everything fell apart, I moved cities. Took a job offer I'd been hesitant to accept before, the kind of offer that required risk, grit, and space to grow. I used part of the refunded wedding costs to put a down payment on a small house. It's nothing special, but it's mine. I park my old truck in the driveway every night and don't feel ashamed of it anymore. I started a side business too, contracting and home repairs. Word of mouth spread quick. People like someone who shows up, works hard, and doesn't pretend to be anything else. Turns out I was never the project. I was the foundation. She just didn't know how to build on it. I've started dating again. Nothing serious yet, but I'm meeting women who see worth in actions, not income brackets. People who say thank you when you fix a sink, not, "Is that all you do?" I think what still stings the most isn't the cheating. It's that I believed her when she said she loved me as I was. She didn't. She loved the idea of being better than me, of dragging me into her world and reshaping me to fit it. But now I know better. I don't need to be extravagant. I don't need to impress anyone's father. I just need to wake up each morning knowing I didn't abandon myself to earn someone else's approval. And these days, I do. The life I almost walked into would have destroyed me slowly, with polite smiles and expensive silence. But walking away, that saved me faster than I ever could have imagined. And if she ever tells the story her way, let her. Because I'm done proving anything to people who never really saw me.